Who's ready to sew? I'm ready. I've been ready. I've been sewing all week. Let me know as soon as you get here. This is gonna be fun. I think. Whoop, I gotta make sure I know what I'm doing. I'm gonna keep on sewing while I wait for you because I'm just having way too much fun. Just saying. What am I gonna do next? Oh, this. I really hate talking to myself. I hate feeling like I'm doing like now when nobody's here and I get to sit here and talk to myself. So we've got fabric order coming in. It's going to ship next week from Andover. We've got our Valentine's Day sale going on now. What else? I'm working on a lot of stuff. Ugh. I feel like I'm more busy now than I was when I had a brick and mortar store. I don't know how that's possible, but it does feel that way. Finally got my outside Christmas decorations down. I know it's crazy, but it was cold. I'm not sitting out there in the cold taking down decorations if I don't have to. Not even just chilly, it was cold. So, yeah, I'm not doing that, but at least I got them down before the end of January. So, it's all about priorities and perspective. So, that's a good thing. What else? I'm going to be closed for a week in February because I'm going to the Daytona Quilt Show. Never been, believe it or not. I've been in Florida 12 years and I've never been because I've always had the store. So I'm really looking forward to it. I already got my tickets. Me and the girls are staying in an Airbnb. It's gonna be good. Good morning, Miss Susan. How are you? Did you get your, I didn't check the tracking. Did you get your backing yet? Your background, I should say. Hi, Charlene. How are you? I hope so. I've never been to Daytona. And I don't know about you, but I didn't do my retreat last year like I normally do with the girls because it was just too much with everything going on. And I need some girl time for sure. Oh, sorry, Susan. I sent it out right away. Mail is just terrible. I can't wait for the show. I need as much. I mean, not only just the show, I need some time with the girls. Just me and the girls. Just I want I need some fun. Are you excited, Susan, to start actually sewing? I've been sewing all week. I've probably been working on this quilt more than I should say, because I got a lot of stuff I gotta be working on, but I've been having fun. Look, look, look. Is one done? Whoops. Here's two done. And three done. Oh, because of the snow? Susan, did they close the processing center because of the storms? I am so glad I picked the rainbow burp fabric because paper piecing is not hard. No, Charlene, I'm not taking any classes. Oh, sorry, Susan. I'm not taking any classes. We're gonna be there. I've got tickets for the whole entire time. So I don't know. I don't even know how many times I'm going to the show, but we have an Airbnb. Hi, Mary. Me and four of my friends. I'm just and it's weird. Okay. I sew almost every day because of the nature of my business. But I'm really looking forward to sitting and sewing with the girls. It's gonna be fun and shopping. I don't know how much shopping I'm gonna do, but no classes, just away. How are you, Mary? Did you see what I did? I've been sewing more on this quilt than I probably should this week, but not because I have to, I have to get it done eventually, but I got a lot of other stuff to do. I finally got my Christmas decorations down for the front of my house this week. What can I say? Priorities. Plus, it was cold. It's finally warm. It's been like the last day or two. It's finally warm again, and I'm not freezing my booty off. All right, let's get some stuff going. So we're going to work on sewing this piece today. And if we have time, these pieces today. Okay. Paper piecing is not difficult. Okay. And her, yes, Charlene, I'm going to have a ton of fun. I can't wait. Quilt Works and Judy's patterns are actually pretty easy. Okay. She gives you a lot of directions, a lot of easy, points in the right direction to make it simple. Couple of things you have to remember. You have to be organized. Okay. Organization is key to doing a quilt like this, especially one with this many pieces. And just trust me, you want to be organized. Okay. Paper piecing, you're going to be switching back and forth between basting stitches, extra small stitch length, and your normal stitch length for piecing. Okay. Just keep in mind that we're going to be switching around a lot. All right. I told you that you're going to need a colored Sharpie marker. Okay. Don't want black. So any color but black. But again, I use a lot of this red one and I put a old pillowcase over. I put my wool mat inside an old pillowcase because there are points when you're ironing this that sometimes the marker comes off a little bit. It's not going to come off on your fabric, but I didn't want it all over my wool mat. So I put a pillowcase there just as a reminder. Okay. You can use purples or whatever color, just not black. And you want somewhat of a thin point tip. You need your outer quarter. If you don't have an outer quarter ruler, don't worry. I'm going to show you how to do it without it. And believe it or not, I use postcards. Or, you know, how many times you get a bookmark showing about a show coming up or a quilt or something like that. That's what I save these for. And of course, I have hundreds of bookmarks around here for those quilt shops that, you know, are long gone, and I couldn't find any. So I'm using postcards. Postcard. This is a plastic internet sales thingy, whatever, that I got in the mail. I mean, Spectrum, same thing. That's all I'm using. So let's get started. I've been so excited about this part. All right, so we need our bag one. Bag one? Yeah. Bag one, I think. My brain is fried. I'm telling you right now. It is as fried as they're gonna get because is it bag one? Or is it bag two? Hold on. No, wrong bag. Yeah, I grabbed the wrong bag. Wrong bag. This is my bag one, I think. Yep, there's my bag one. I grabbed the wrong one first. All right. All right, where is my, oh, here it is. First thing you're gonna do is all of the dotted lines are your 1/4 inch seam allowance. That's where I used the Sharpie markers to draw over all of those lines. You can do a solid line or you can do a dash line, whatever. It doesn't matter. What does matter, and I'm going to go over some of these lines a little bit that I did with a marker that was running out, is it's going to bleed through the paper a little bit. Just enough for you to see the line. The reason we're doing this is years ago, before this idea came out, you'd have to go to like a window and draw the lines or see where your lines are. Because remember, we're working backwards. So we're going to be working from the back of the paper and sewing on the front. So they used to use window boxes, light boxes, or just windows. Hopefully you can see. Can you see how the lines are starting to bleed through? That's so when I go to put my paper, my fabric on, I know exactly where I need the fabric to cover. Okay, does that make sense so far? So you're going to do that on all your papers first for each section. You don't have to do all the papers and the whole quilt first. Just do them one section at a time. All right, everybody with me? Now, the other thing that I told you that we're going to be using, and I'll be honest, I've used basting glue before for other stuff like Hoop Sisters for Quilt As You Go. I have never used basting glue for paper piecing. And let me tell you something right now. I had an epiphany. I might be using these things for everything because it makes life so much easier. Originally, they were using these just for curves. You know, curve piecing is not easy. And we're going to be doing some curve piecing here. So the basting glue, and it's all wash away, so don't freak out, helps keep everything together without pins. And it is amazing. To give you a heads up, in what I've done so far, I've already used 4 of the, excuse me, refills. I've already ordered a whole bunch more, and I might be selling these in my shop now because they are the bomb. Everybody with me so far? Give me a yes or no, because there's a lot we got to go over, and I want to make sure everybody's going to be on the same page. Yes, no, maybe. Oh, good. Okay. First thing we're going to do, and now we're working on our A1 pieces. They all have section numbers. So what we're going to do is we are going to stack all of the sections in order. You're going to start with your highest number, which in this case is section 7. See the sew line? Almost all the patterns have a sew line. That's where we're actually going to sew. So we want to stack them. 7, sew line away from us. 6, with the sew line away from us. 5, with the sew line away from us. And 4, again, sew line away. Section 3, sew line away. Section 2, sew line away. And then we have section 1, which doesn't have a sew line. And that's because this one is going on the back of our paper to start face up. Okay. I know it doesn't make any sense yet, but it will. So this is the first one I'm going to use. And we're going to start in section 1. So you're going to follow the numbers going from 1 all the way to section 7. And it's going to tell you what lines to sew first. It's so simple. It really is. It seems like it's a lot harder, but it's not. So this is section 1 that we're going to deal with first. Section 1, and you're going to match up the shapes. Remember when I told you all of these fabrics that we've cut are a lot bigger than we actually need. So you should be fine in just about everything. And all I'm going to do is put some glue right on my paper. And the other thing about this glue is don't be skimpy, because you end up hurting yourself in the long run because you'll have to just go back and re-glue it. So all I do is I'm going to take my template paper that I used to cut everything, put it off to the side so I can refer back to it. Here is our fabric AA, our section 1 fabric, I mean, and you are going to wrong side down, right over the piece on your paper. So we're just going to make sure we cover everything that we need to. Now, you may want to write this down, okay? If you want, I'll put a little slide or a note in there, or I can type it now for you. It's really simple. These are the steps that you're going to do over and over and over again. Step 1. Whoops. Step 1, fold on the paper. Fold your paper, whoops, on the solid line. Step 2, use your add a quarter ruler if you have it. Step 3, trim. Step 4, add your next fabric. Five, oops. So on the solid line. Add a 1.5 to 1.8 stitch length. 6, iron, and 7, repeat all over again. Oops, I'm sorry. Forgot to silence my phone. Sorry. Just give me a second. It's been one of those days, one of those weeks. Hold on. All right. So those are going to be your 7 steps. And already I'm out of order, but such is life. Here's your line 1, and I turn these all over when you're going to have a whole stack of these, okay? So I turn them over, pointing up. We're going to put our cardboard or bookmark on line 1 and fold it back. And I recommend doing this kind of like an assembly line, like if you're in a factory or something. So I would go and draw the line on all of your papers first. Then I would go and fold all of your papers and put them aside. Then you can go and start actually trimming them up. Okay. It's a little hard to show you that assembly line part because I've already got most of it done. So I folded, I usually keep my cardboard or bookmark in there because it just gives it a little bit higher edge. If you're using the add a quarter ruler, and I'll be honest, up until this quilt, I didn't use my add a quarter ruler that much. The whole idea of an add a quarter ruler, if you don't know, is it has a 1/4 inch edging with a lip. And that edge, that lip, will just put right up against your card and your fold. And then you can trim up your fabric. And I'll show you how to do this without the add a quarter too in the one of the next ones. So that you only have a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Here's my line for where the fabric has to go to. Now, on this first one, you can see the seam allowance. It's a little bit harder for me to show you why we need those, but when you look with the lines, it bleeding through, you know you can actually cover your fabric. So if you see here, can you see that? I hope you can see it. It's kind of hard. I didn't want to draw it on this side because then it would go on my fabric, but hopefully, can you see that line right here bleeding through? That's what's going to show me where the fabric has to cover, because you want at least a 1/4 inch after you sew these together, just like you would in normal fabric, normal piecing, I should say. Okay, so that's my first thing. This is how you do the first one only. Here's my section 2. Now, section 2 is right here. See, same, same. Now what I'm going to do with this is with the fold, and this is where the glue comes in. Now, not so much here, but and what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay it because of the sew line. So that's how I know where I'm going to sew. And I'm just putting some glue right on, like within the 1/4 inch seam. It's blue, but it dries clear. And I'm just going to lay it down. And push. The heat from your fingers will help dry it up and dry the glue pretty quickly. Okay. Now, you're not sure, you're still freaking out. All right, I've got it glued. And I can see when I fold it over, I know it's hard for you to see, but my seam allowance lines that are bleeding through, it will cover those without any problem. Okay. Still with me? Give me a head, yes or no, if you're still with me. I am now going to sew this right on my line 1. Okay. And if it crosses over lines, you're still going to sew the whole line. So line 2 is here and 1 is going to cross, line 2 is going to cross right over line 1. Doesn't matter. I'm going to sew the whole line 1. The difference now is that I'm going to decrease my seam allowance, my stitch length to between 1.8 or 1.5 and 1.8. On my line, I'm going to start a few stitches before the start of the line, and I'm going to end a few stitches after the line. Do you know why we have a smaller seam, smaller stitch length when you're doing paper piecing? Yes or no? I can tell you, it's so that you can perforate all these papers and take them off easier. So I'm just going to stitch right on that line. I started a stitch or 2 before the start of the line. And I'm going a stitch or 2 after the end of the line. And yeah, these papers are pretty good. If you rip them, I mean, they're still strong, but if you rip it, that's what regular Scotch tape is for, so don't freak out. And we're gonna cut our threads. Okay. So here it is. I started a couple stitches before the start of the line and ended a couple of stitches at the end of the line. Now, stitch length is going to depend on your machine. Mine is a Brother, and I have it at 1.6. I kind of split the difference between 1.5 and 1.8. Now, I'm going to go over to my ironing board and lay it with the paper side down. This is why I have a pillowcase on my wool mat. I'm going to lay it with the paper side down and press, not press. Yeah, press, not iron. We're going to do a lot of pressing and iron or press this white piece for section 2 over. Reason I said we're going to do a lot more pressing than ironing is we're working on a lot of cases in this quilt, especially when we get to A3 units, you're working with the bias. So if you iron, which is going back and forth, you're going to stretch the fabric. It's going to get wonky. It's not going to meet up. You don't want to do that. So if you press where you're just ironing, putting your iron down, not pushing it, it'll work out much better for you. And that's true for anything that we're working on the bias. And even with these small pieces, I did pressing because it was easier than having a wonky, trying to iron it not all the fabric is sewn down. So what happens is, and you don't want steam, no water in your iron. Don't use best press at this point because you're going to press your paper and it'll start dissolving. So you've got a lot of areas where the fabric isn't necessarily stitched down. And if you iron it, you're going to have wonky folds that it's going to want to go all over the place. You don't want to do that. Okay. So you're going to be doing 8 of these. I've done 7 already. So this is my last one. And you're just going to do it as an assembly. You're going to keep doing the same thing. So I would have drawn all my lines first, then done all my folds second, put my fabric on third, but you're going to do all 8 in each step. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, now we're on line 2. And you've got to fold it on line 2. I mean, section 2. Yeah. All right. So we're on line 2 and we're going to be doing section 3. You're always doing a section above the line. Okay, before we do that, line 2 is right here. We've already sewed right here. You can't fold it over because you've stitched it down. So the line's over here. And I need to fold this one over. But see what happens, how it pulls up the fabric? So all we're going to do is we're going to pull our paper. And sometimes this is easier than others. Pull the paper down past where it's going to intersect the next line. So now we can fold it. And don't worry, if these little pieces rip a little bit harder than you would think, or you get a little, it's not a big deal. Trust me. So you want to fold on line 2, that solid line. And as promised, if you don't have the add a quarter ruler, you're just going to put the 1/4 inch mark from your ruler on your cardboard or bookmark, whatever you're using, and then trim up. There you go. Now, we have our section 3. And what I'm doing is I am taking all of these papers that I've already used and just keeping them clipped together so that I can use them again. Some of them you'll be able to use again, others you won't. Our sew line is up here. So this is where we're going to put our glue. Hopefully you can see. Can you see that glue? I'm not skimping, I can tell you that. It's not, it's worth using this new tool. Okay. Now I've got, extra on this side. Actually, I'm going to move it down just slightly. It's covering over here and it's covering over there. And if I lay it flat, make sure it's nice and glued, it's going to cover on this side too. All right. Now on to line 2. Let me know if you have any questions or if I'm not explaining it well, or it's going to become muscle. The more, and that's the whole idea that you want to, why you want to do this as kind of like a factory assembly line. It's going to make it easier for you to get through pretty fast and not forget anything. I have a lot of strings and a lot of paper. So now I have where I've sewed, when I put it on my ironing board and it's face down, I put my sew line towards me so that it's been, in my opinion, I found it's easier just to fold it over this way without trying to do it this way. You're more likely to, when you iron it, you're more likely to actually iron it instead of pressing it. So I have found that doing it towards you is easier. Yep. And I don't know if you can see it, but here's my seam allowance line, and my fabric goes all the way past that. If you have any questions or I'm not explaining something well, just let me know, because this has got a lot, but it's easy. It really is easy. I'm having fun. All right, and it's just repeat again. We do a lot of repeat. So now line 3 is over here. So now we're going to rip this way because we've sewed all the way to here. And line 3 is right there. And now we've got to just pick them up a little bit past where we're going to actually sew. Put my cardboard or bookmark on, fold over on line 3. Now I'm going to use my add a quarter. Here's my section 4. There's my sew line on this side. Just putting the glue in the 1/4 inch seam allowance. It's not, even if you did more and you got some over here, don't freak out. Yes. Wrong side glued to the paper because you're working from the back. So as I was saying, if you get too much glue on, don't freak out, because when you wash your quilt, it's water soluble and it will come out. And I do a lot in the beginning. I did a lot of double checking just to make sure I'm where I want to be. So I loosely fold it over after I glue it just to make sure we're doing section 4 and make sure everything is in there. And oh my God, I got more than I need. Way more than I need. So that's what I meant when I told you that these fabric pieces are plenty big enough. You have any other questions, Susan? So I'm going to start a couple of stitches before the start of the line. And stitch right on that solid line number 3. And stitch a couple of lines past, a couple of stitches past, not lines. just, you know, the video is going to be up there. Just go right along with the video. If you're having problems, just go right along with the video. So there's my line 3. And now I'm going to, again, put my sew line towards me and press it over. I'm kind of curious if I did. No, I'm good, I think. I did a lot of second guessing, I'll tell you that, in the beginning. Lots. Make sure I know what I'm doing. No. Because I'm doing a rainbow ombre quilt. I have all different colors. And it's so pretty. I'll tell you, when I got to this part, so this is the part that we're working on now. But when I got to this part, which I don't think we're going to do today, we're going to do hopefully this one today, plus the little one. We'll see, because this one takes a long time. But when I was doing this one, because it's an ombre and the color change didn't happen really fast, I did a whole lot of second guessing myself. Did I cut it right? Did I cut the right fabric? It doesn't look like it's changing until I got further down on the. You don't have to worry about that because you're not doing a rain unless you do a rainbow quilt, but most of you are not doing a rainbow quilt. Only I'm the crazy one. Okay. Now we're going to go over here line 4, which means we've got to pull our paper on line 1 up because it interferes with our line 4. Oh, this is all just repeat one after another. Trim. Seems like, well, we waste a lot of fabric when you're trimming it, but unfortunately, if you want points like this and this much detail and intricate, there's no other way to do it. Now on section 5, my sew line, so I know where to put my glue. Kind of centering it in between, centering it on that next fabric. And then just in case, check it out. I did a lot of the second guessing. I hate to tell you, especially in the beginning. Now we're gonna iron. Sew. We're sewing on line 4. And this one I started this way. I will warn you in advance. There's going to be a couple of places where I do not follow the pattern. And I'll show you, I'll make a point to explain that when I get to those points. Only because it's easier doing it my way and it's cuts down on time. So I never tell you you absolutely have to do it my way. I'm just giving you another option. And I will point those out when I get there. All right. You know me, I'm always going my own way. That's not such a bad thing sometimes. I've been doing it a long time and I figure out different ways to change how they're doing it or how I'm doing it to save time and aggravation. All right. Line 5 is next. So we're going to have to pull up on our paper right here. These papers are a lot stronger than you think. I'm not saying go savage, rip it off, but they are much stronger than you think. So line 5, put my bookmark, fold it over. This is my add a quarter. If you don't want to use an add a quarter, don't. Use a regular rule. Here's my section 6. There's my sew line. Well, this one I started about a quarter of an inch. See where the paper fold is? About a quarter of an inch from the edge of my fabric. Double check. In the beginning, I double checked every one of them. And that's why I'm showing you, because it just gives your brain a little bit of boost to make sure that you know what you're doing. And now I'm going to sew. So you're going to sew on the solid lines, not the dashed lines or the colored lines that you put in there. That isn't always the true, but for the bulk of it, just keep that in mind. For the bulk of this project, we are sewing on the solid lines. And you'll understand that more when we get to A3. I do not normally use my fabric cutter, my trim on my machine, because it usually cuts the thread too short. If you have a good one, you might want to use the thread cutter. But for the most part, I did not use the thread cutter. There we go. It's starting to take shape. Woohoo. All right, next line. We've just done 5. We've got line 6. And it's section 7, which is our last one. So we've got line 6 and we've got to pull up on line 3. Same thing here. I'm going about a quarter of an inch larger than the paper. And when in doubt, oops. There you go. I'll tell you, doing a lot of these, just doing one goes by really quick. We'll have to see how much we get done today. All right. Didn't mean to do that. Now, we're not done yet with the paper, with the sewing. So first thing I'm going to do is rethread my machine because I cut my thread. Is I'm going to iron this piece here. Final piece. And then I'll show you what you're going to do next. Remember I told you we're going to be changing our stitch length up, down, back, forth, from basting stitch to piecing to really small piecing stitches. This is the case where we're going to do a basting stitch on these RP lines. Hopefully you can see we've got one here. Actually, I'll show you over here. Let's see. I'll even highlight it for you. How's that? So we've got an RP line here, and we've got an RP line here. On some of the pieces, I do one RP line and in basting stitch and then cut my thread and then move over to the next one. It depends on, some of these pieces are really, really big, and it's harder to just chain piece it. These I just chain stitch. So I started over here and did my RP in a basting stitch, and then I jump stitched over to here and did the rest of my RP line. All those are when we start doing piece, when you actually start piecing it together. Here's my RP lines. So when I go to put this piece on, I have an RP line here and here. So I'll know where to line up first the pieces. Does that make sense? They're just they're marking points. That's all they are. So let's go. On these smaller pieces, I just chain piece. So I'm only going to have one to show you, but I did chain piece them. Now I'm going to go up to, on my machine, is like a 3.5 length. And if this is a basting stitch, so if they come out, be prepared to mark them with a pen or, some other method. Like some of these I did mark after I stitched them and started pulling, because the act of pulling the paper off may get rid of some of these, it may pull the stitches out. And I'll show you where I actually mark them with a friction pen. As we go. And then I'm just going to cut the jump stitch. Make sure I don't have a ton of extra threads. That's what it looks like. Depending on the fabric that you picked, I'm using a light gray. But
Most depraved approach to policy making, which is to attack wokeness, whatever that means, and say that's the reason the planes and the helicopter collide.
I don't know why that did that. That's weird. TV turned on by itself. I think I got gremlins. Depending on the fabric that you pick that you're using, you may want to use a dark black thread when you're doing your basting stitches, your marking stitches, or a really light white thread, depending on what the fabric is so that you can actually see it. Okay. My background fabric is white. I'm not using white. I'm using gray. I know you may not be able to tell, but it is a light gray. If I wanted to, I'm stitching everything with light gray. For me, I can see the stitches, and if I can't see the stitches, that's when I'm going to use a friction pen to mark where I have to. Does that make sense? Let me know, because now we're going to cut. Now, I want to talk to you about all of these papers. First, we're going to cut all of the excess around on this dark outside line. We've got what they call smart corners. That's these little dots here. And here. Those are very important when we start putting this quilt together, because the smart quarters make everything line up, the smart corners. On the paper itself, I'm going to recommend, unless you have a design wall that you can put everything on, I recommend not taking the papers off until you actually start using that piece and sewing them together. The papers in a lot of cases are there as stability to holding everything together. Plus, if you aren't using it, it might confuse you because you don't have, unit numbers on them, or you're not sure what you're doing. So for now, just keep the paper on them until you use it. I have a big design wall that I'm laying these pieces on, so I'm not too worried. I'm putting them in order, and then I grab them off the design board when I want to sew them together. So this is one of those cases of do as I say, not as I do. It's up to you, but I am going to take my papers off right away because I'm going to be sewing them. And I put them all on my design wall and didn't need the paper. Now I have a lot of cut pieces, and I try to keep it organized and clean. So after each piece, I clean the cutting board off and get ready to do the next one. Okay. There is our piece. See, just like that. When you put these together, now this is not how we're going to put them together, but when you do, those smart corners are really going to help you. Taking the pieces off. We're not going to get savage here. You're just going to pull the papers off. This is the only reason I don't like paper piecing, because this to me is torture, taking all these pieces of paper off. I don't freak out if there's a couple of pieces left on, a small piece here or Chad there or something like that, because it'll all come out in the wash. I'm not really too worried. I do try to get as much off as possible. You can find, if you don't have nails, using a purple thingy or something like that, just to help you get some of these off or started, because they're sewn all the way around all the corners, so it's a little bit harder to get it going. Again, you're gonna have papers everywhere, so I recommend having a trash can next to you when you're at this point. And I try to throw all my little pieces, but I still end up pieces all over the place in the trash. That is our A1 done. All right. before I go on to unit A3, does anybody have any questions? After I take all the paper off, okay, I press this again. And you might have to press it again before you actually sew it, but this is just how I do it. I just pressed it again, just to make sure it stays nice and folded on the seams. How about you, Miss Mary? Are you good? Do you have any questions after the first one? Okay. Okay. That's good. A little bit at a time is good. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay. Just go slow. Oh, where am I? There. We have bag. What bag is this? I need to move. This is bag 3 for our A3. Okay. Now, if you remember, this was the only fabric that we cut from the back side, from the wrong side. If you put paper tape, not paper tape, the double-sided tape, very gently take the tape off, because you don't want it on there, especially if you're going to iron these. And I did iron my fabrics. So you don't want the paper tape on there. All right. And it looks like you might be ripping your paper apart, but trust me, you're not gonna. Just go slow. Get that double-sided tape off. I have a few, can you see maybe not. I have a few parts on here where, can you see where I took the tape off from the back side? So it's a little thinner. So if you go slow, it's fine. Thankfully, this is a quick and easy one. Not quick and easy, but we're not going to have the stuff on there that long. Okay. This is where it's a little bit different than what you should be doing. Normally, the stitch line, the stitch line is solid, and the seam allowance is a dash line. This one is a little bit weird. So we have our basting line is solid and our sew line is solid. Trust me, it's still going to work though, because it tells you line 1, line 2, simple, simple. All right, I got to get my notes. I remember what I'm doing. Okay. On the back of the paper, we're going to use the glue, and we're going to only put glue on the center of this piece, not along our sew lines. So we want to stay away from these lines on the very outside edge. So all I did was make a quick center piece. And there we go. Here is our our A3 units. And all I'm doing is we're going to be cutting this down. So when we cut these, we just rough cutted them. There's plenty of fabric to go around. So all I'm doing is making sure it's in the center of the fabric. So the paper is in the center of the fabric. I need a little bit more glue. Oops, Nola is barking. Sorry. Let me know if you missed something because of her barking. All right. We're going to follow the lines and do exactly as the line says. So the first line is this solid line in the center, and it says line 1 basting stitch line. So we are going to use a basting stitch, and we're going to stitch on that line. I used about 3.5 on my machine. So this center line is line 1 basting stitch line. That's a basting stitch. Okay. Oh, Nola has been weird this week. She had an upset stomach before this week, sometime this week, and she's just been acting really weird. And my neighbor behind me, even though I have a big wooden fence all the way around, my neighbor behind me who doesn't have a dog has somebody visiting with a German Shepherd. And Miss Nola, I don't know if I told you, she has got major anxiety. She's afraid of everything. And she has been on edge all week because of that dog. All right. So I start basting before the start line, and I'm just going to follow that line. That's line 1. This is a very gentle curve. It's not difficult. Everybody thinks Miss Nola is vicious. She's got a very deep bark and she sounds vicious, but she's actually more afraid of them. I got off my basting line a little bit, so I'm just going to go back and get back on the basting line. So yeah, everybody thinks that she's like a killer dog, and she looks like it. Let me tell you, when her hackles go up, you can tell. But it's all fear-based. She is so afraid of everything. Every little sound, every noise, every person. I had the groceries delivered really early this morning, and she freaked out. She wouldn't go anywhere near the door because there was a stranger at the door. Okay. Now, let me show you here. You've got RP lines here, 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 and here. And we just did this basting line. So I don't want you to do these RP lines yet, but I do want you to do these 3 RP lines next. You already have the setting down for a basting stitch. So we're going to do 1, 2, and then this one. So we're going to do the opposite side that we did our basting stitch, our first basting stitch here. And this is one of the pieces that I don't go into extra. I don't want to go too many before the line because it's going to be interfere with when you're trying to actually put the piece together. So I'm going to start right on the dot. Let me see if I can show you what I'm talking about. Okay. Normally you have the dotted lines over here. So you've got the dotted lines into the seam allowance, but you've got a big dot right here. So I'm going to start at the dot. All the other one that we did here, we started over here and basted. Now I want you to start on the dot and just baste in. So you're not in the seam allowance. Does that make sense? So I'm going to start on the dot and sew in and not baste this part up here. And with this large piece, I did end up even I couldn't do chain piecing with these, so I had to do them all one at a time. What I do sometimes too is after I baste it, because we're not sewing in the seam allowance, that's when I will take this my friction pen and just draw a line into the seam allowance, so that when I go to line up my fabric, I have even more options. I know it doesn't make sense now, but trust me, it will. Oops. Pulled it right out. Okay. Now, we're not going to do the other two basting lines on the side that we've already basted our first base stitch. We're only doing them on the three basting marking lines, RP lines on the opposite side. So here are my RP lines. You can see with the stitching and a ton of scraggly threads. So I just drew from the tip of that basting line into the seam allowance. Good. Now is the fun part. Now we're going to start working with bias. Okay. So what we're going to do, let me see, which side did I do this on? I gotta, hold on. I gotta adjust my brain here. Okay. This is where I'm going off, not on the direction. So our basting line, okay? We're going to use that as a marker to show where we're going to put our bias strip. So I'm going to put glue right under that stitched basting line, all the way over. You don't want to go into your seam allowance, just a quarter of an inch, right directly under that stitch line. And this is where more glue is better than little amount of glue. You can try and do it the way in the directions, but this makes much more sense, and it's easier, and it takes up less time. I just have to iron my base or press my basting strip. bias strip, not basting strip, bias strip. My iron to hit up. So yes, you can try and do it. My recommendation is to watch the video. You've got 8 of these to do. Do one of them my way. If you want, then you can do one of them the way it says in the book. I guarantee you're more than likely going to keep doing it my way, because it's a little bit confusing in my opinion in the book. Okay. All right. I have my bias strip. This is the right side of the fabric. Paper is on the back. That's our basting stitch that we did, stitch 1. This is the right side of my bias strip. I'm going to keep a tail off here, and I'm just going to align the fabric gently. Now remember, this is a bias strip. You don't want to pull and tug. You're going to stretch it all out of proportion. You just want to gently lay it under the stitch line, the basting stitch line that we did, and just follow the curve. This is one of the areas where the glue is amazing. Okay, these strips are a lot longer than you need. Don't freak out. There's plenty of material. Just go slow. And you see that? I don't know if you can see it, but my basting stitch is right there. So I glued just under the basting stitch line and laid my fabric right there. Hopefully you can see the blue. Can you see that? Okay. Good. Not so good. Okay. I did, because I'm starting up at this side, the top, and I did put a little clip at the bottom just to hold my tip where it needs to be. Now, we're going to go to line 2. Everybody understand what I've done so far? We're going to go to line 2, and we have to adjust our stitch length back down to 1.6 or between 1.5 and 1.8. It all depends on your machine. Everybody understand? Everybody on the same page so far? And I'm going to start stitching line 2 sew line. I started a couple of stitches before the start of the line, and I'm going to stitch all the way to the end of the line. Good. Who else is in here? We got Susan. I know we got Mary. I know. Who else is in here? Whoever it is, let me know if you have any questions. All right. So now I've stitched on line 2, or sew line 2. All right. Now, this is very important, like really important. That's what it looks like. Now we're going to iron this up, iron our bias strip up before we actually cut anything. Listen to me. This is a bias strip. Do not iron, just press. Okay. And this is a step that you don't want to forget, because if you forget to iron this up or press this up and you go and cut it, what it laying down, you're going to have to unstitch this and re-sew another strip on. Okay. Ask me how I know. I cut it without ironing the fabric, the bias strip up. And what happens is you cut right here, right? Even the smart corners is where it's the worst. Once you cut it there and then iron it up, guess what? It doesn't fit. It's not long enough. So if you have to follow along, put a big giant star in your directions and say, yo, because I've already done it. You do not want to do the same mistake I did. Make sure you iron the bias strip up before you trim the paper and the fabric, okay? Say yes. That way I know everybody understands. So again, it's a bias strip. So we are going to press, not iron. I'm gently just folding it up, lifting my iron up and placing it down. I'm not ironing because trust me, you do not want this one stretched out because it's going to come out back all kinds of wonky when you actually try to cut it and sew it together and it wants to shrink back to its normal place. It's not going to look right. The good thing about me doing this first is then hopefully you don't make the same mistakes I do. I'm having fun with it. I hope you guys are having fun or will be having fun, but I really am having fun with this. I've always wanted to do one of these quilts, always, but I've never had the time. So by doing this as a free class, guess what? I get to sew what I want. Ay, ay, ay. Are you guys enjoying this so far? Please tell me you're enjoying this so far. Because if you're not, this was a bad idea. I'm enjoying it, but I don't know if you are. All right, now you want to make sure, see how the pink fabric is the one that was my original fabric and the white is my bias strip. See how it looks now? Now we can trim everything up. So we're just going to put on the solid outside line, just like we did our fabrics before, the trimming. And I'm going to have to stand up because trying to do this from sitting down ain't going to work. Just go slow. How are you guys feeling about cutting with your rulers on these curved pieces now? Feeling a little bit more comfortable? You can, put your 1/4 inch mark on that inside 1/4 inch seam and follow along. That'll help you make sure that you don't cut the wrong line. I kind of look at both and I just keep my ruler moving and I basically just keep my rotary cutter up against the ruler. Unfortunately, cutting like this, sometimes you have to cut it a couple of times because it doesn't want to cut. There are, oh, I forgot to tell you that. There are a slight curve here on one of these sides, so make sure that you follow the lines. Yes, I'm wearing black again, like a dealing, so I have threads everywhere. Just go slow and you'll be fine. Nobody answered me. How are you guys feeling cutting fabric like this with the ruler? Are you comfortable? Anybody here? Did I lose you? Okay. How about you, Susan? Are you comfortable cutting fabrics like this? Oh, shop blade makes a huge difference. So after all of this, I'm almost ready to actually change my blade again, but I haven't yet. I might in the section B. That's all I have for you today. We did A1 and A3. Next week, we're going to do A2. Keep the papers on, even though I didn't. I actually pulled all my papers off, but I'm telling you not to do what I did. Unless you have a design wall. I have a huge design wall in here that I can just put the pieces up in place as I make them. This one, even though it's a bias, has a lot of bias on it, you really don't need a lot of stability on this unit once you get it to this point. Lots of homework, but it's really not that much. I did them all, put it this way, I did all of A1s in about 2 days and all of these in a day. And I've already gotten to the point where A through A2s took me a little bit longer. That's this piece, which is why I didn't go in order, because I figured that next week we might have only time to do this one. As we get further along, like into some of the B units, I'm not going to go as much step by step. I will tell you where the differences are, because as you're doing these, you're going to be doing 8 of each. Okay. As you're doing these, it will become muscle memory. It'll be the same thing over and over and over again. And if you're not sure, you can always refer back to my videos. Or like me, I write a lot of notes under each section. I have what I did is I read the section, sewed some, and then wrote my own directions, in notes. Overkill probably, but for me, it works. Yeah, I know. It's a lot of prep work. It's one of the reasons why I don't like paper piecing. It's a lot of prep work, and hers are even more prep work than normal paper piecing. And I don't like the mess of all the papers. I have a tendency, I want to get better at, I love paper piecing, but I just don't like all the crap. I want to perfect my freezer paper foundation paper piecing, and then do a class in that, because I love freezer paper. The thing about freezer paper piecing is you don't cut papers. You don't have to rip the papers off. You can use each paper multiple times. It becomes like a template because you iron it on. So that's one of my next bucket things is I want to perfect my paper piecing with freezer paper, and then show you how to do that, because I love kaleidoscopes, and paper piecing with freezer paper and kaleidoscopes go hand in hand. How are you guys feeling? You good with everything that I've done? I'm here if you have any questions. I am going away in February. What is it? I forget. My brain is like mush. From here, now I got to go work on machines. I would much rather be sewing some more, but I can't. Yeah, I'm gone the week after Valentine's. So the 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th, all the way through the Saturday. So we won't have a class on the 22nd. But we've got a class the next two classes. So I'm hoping to get you into a position where you're comfortable and it's just repeat. That's what I'm hoping. So that during that week it'll be like a week off that you can get some more work done on this quilt. All right, that's all I have. Now I gotta get ready for my next class in 20 minutes. All right, you know where I am. If you have any questions at all, please don't be afraid. You can call me, text me, message me, email me, whatever. You know where I am if you need me. All right. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Bye. You go pee, Mama? Hmm? Good girl.